Welcome to Keep It Real with Ana and Avery. We are powered today by White's Investment Management. We're live at Lefty's, one of the best spots in town. We have a special guest now, Jake Mintz, joining us. He's part of Yahoo Sports, D1 Baseball, also Cespedes Barbecue. How are you doing today, Jake?
I'm doing absolutely wonderful. I throw righty, I hit lefty,
okay,
and that's what got me in the door today.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing, and I love the puns. We're all about it here.
Yeah.
First experience in Omaha, we'll take you back versus right now. What were your first impressions when you came here versus what it is today? Because I know you've been here in 2018 as a fan, now working it. What's been your different impressions every time?
Well, I'm definitely more sober now.
I would hope, right?
Yeah, like exponentially more than I was in 2018. I'm less sunburnt. When I came as a fan, I was roasting like a cherry tomato out in the bleachers. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think not smart. Like, make sure you lather up on that SPF. But in terms of the atmosphere, I remember being out in the bleachers like in the 0-1 game, and it was pretty sparse. And yesterday, that was not the case.
No.
And you can just tell when you look out from the press box at the number of people who are in the seats, and it's exponentially more. Exponentially more. And so there's that. And then the other thing that's really changed for someone who does a lot of MLB coverage, and that is the lens through which I view the sport, the amount of people who are reaching out to me to learn more about college baseball, that's what's encouraging, right? I'm getting people who they don't know what like a super regional is, are like, you see Christian Moore? I'm like, yes, I was there. Like, I saw it.
Did you see him?
Did you not see Christian Moore?
Did you miss him?
Yeah, I caught the 440-foot, 117.4 mile an hour homer. Yeah, it went across my purview. Yeah, 100%.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we have some awesome games on tap for us. But before we get into that, I want to tell you a little bit more about our friends at White's. In baseball, teams advance by using research, statistics, and tuition. And at White's, they manage your money the same way. You can learn more at whites.investment/CWS. We're all about making money here.
Look, I'm getting married this year. That is not a cheap endeavor.
No.
I could use a money manager. Yeah. That would be beneficial to me. So, hit
up our friends.
I guess I'm going to.
Yeah, great. Look at that.
Well, let's talk some baseball elimination game today. You got Florida and NC State. A guy named Jack Caglione, if you've ever heard of him.
Familiar.
He's going to be on the mound today. We're figuring out who's with NC State. We think it's Fritton. Is that correct?
I'm not sure yet. It's either going to be Dominic Fritton, who is, I believe, a left-handed pitcher for them with kind of a high carry fastball, or it's going to be Whitlock, who Logan Whitaker, who was on the team in 2021 when they had a little bit of a COVID kerfuffle with the Wolfpack. And so
one way to put it.
That's one way to put it. And that would be an interesting move if they went with Whitaker, just because to have your two pitchers in Omaha be two of the very few players who were on that 2021 team be here. I think that's a cool experience. Parsing between those two guys, we'll see how deep they go. Now, NC State's strength is its bullpen in a lot of ways. Jacob Duden struggled a little bit in his first game, but I'd imagine they'll bring him back. He'll throw today if it's close. But today is just what do we get from Caglione on the mound? Because we've seen him be dominant, and we've seen him have no idea where the strike zone is. We saw it in Omaha last year, right?
Yeah, agree.
Multiple times. And that is a legitimate concern. But if we're looking for a performance from a guy who can do something special, it's always going to start with Jack Caglione.
Yeah. You're speaking. I want to go back to what you said about people reaching out to you about information and wanting to learn more. Has Jack been a topic of people been asking? Like, you got the Christian one. Have people been hearing about Jack and being like, what is it about this guy?
Yeah, so it's interesting because he is the most famous college baseball player in 2024. Last year was Paul Skeens, right? And I would say this year it's really the guys that have broken through are Bazzana, Condon, but then above that, it's really Tommy White and Caglione are the two. And part of, Tommy White had his amazing freshman campaign for NC State. That went viral. And the thing that's interesting for Caglione is people asking, why is he not going to be the consensus first overall pick? Why not? And I, unfortunately, not to rain on a parade, I'm kind of a low guy on Caglione as a pro prospect. I have concerns about his ability to cut down on his chase rate outside the zone. I think he's only going to hit at the big league level. I think most teams view him that way. That being said, it should not take away from what has been an unbelievable college career. Yeah. And I would love to be proven wrong. Like, ideally, I want Jack Caglione to go into pro ball and hit and pitch and do all the things. Yeah. I just have a little bit of skepticism, but he is definitely someone who's broken through, right? Yeah. I mean, Jack Tani.
Yeah. I mean, that's your nickname.
Like, come on. Yeah. Also, look at the guy. Like, you look at Jack Caglione on the street, you're like, you are famous and talented.
And play football.
It's not fair.
On that topic, I mean, there's a lot of teams here that are, I mean, you can Texas A&M, Florida, you name a lot of them. But when you look at Florida's lineup, they are strong top to bottom. Like, even like a Cade Curlin, who is your second baseman, undersized, but he's so strong, hits the baseball incredibly for his size. Like, do you know anything about what the Florida program does when they get these players? Because they definitely stand out in terms of their physicality.
I mean, you know, Sully's just an elite recruiter.
Yeah.
I mean, he's an elite recruiter, and the state of Florida has more baseball talent than anywhere in America.
Yeah.
And so that kind of self-selects for it, would be my guess, right? If you grow up in Florida, you want to go to Florida.
Yeah.
More than Florida State over the last 10 years. Now, I think Link Jarrett can change that.
Yeah.
But I think it's less about what the program is doing with these kids once they get there and more about how they recruit.
Yeah.
That's my sense of it.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like, Cade Curlin is such a great example.
Yeah.
It's like, you look like my little brother. Oh, your forearms look like trees, right?
Right.
You know, that's, and that's when I talk about, like, people talk about pro physicality, it's like, how tight are your forearms? Like, Christian Moore is a really great example. Like, you look at him, you're a professional athlete.
Yeah.
Florida does have a lot of talent, physicality, top to bottom.
Yeah.
It's interesting when you talk MLB prospects. I know you're heading out to the draft combine. I was thinking about this before the show. Obviously, the guys that are playing here can't go to that combine right now. Does that affect their draft stock at all?
Absolutely not. The draft combine is more helpful for players from smaller programs and like Division II, Division III schools and high schoolers, because there is so much data and video where, you know, if I'm trying to make a decision, say on drafting NC State catcher Jacob Cozart, I have 3 years of data. I have his Team USA stuff from the summers, and I have all this video. So what Jacob Cozart would do in one day in Phoenix running the 60-yard dash is not going to change the equation for me. Whereas if I play for, you know, East Jacobitsville State Tech and I throw 98, getting in front of some scouts on a TrackMan is really going to help my draft stock.
Right. That's interesting, because you think about raising your stock here. Is there still a possibility for guys to move up on draft boards here?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Christian Moore has done that.
Yeah.
I mean, here it's easier to do as a pitcher. I think back a couple of years ago, Cade Horton, I believe that was 2022 with Oklahoma. He had a very specific set of circumstances where he was a very highly regarded pitching prospect. He was a two-sport athlete. He got Tommy John, and he only came back, I believe, like halfway through the season, late April. And so his first start here against Notre Dame, he shoved. And he basically went from back of the first round to the 6th overall pick from with the Cubs, and is now one of the top, 50 prospects in the minor leagues. That moment raised his stock for him. As far as position players go, it's a little bit harder just because there's so much data before this. The one thing you can glean, and this is kind of silly, is who's got that dog in him. Right? Like Christian Moore, when the lights got bright, he raised his game to the moment. And now I don't think that you should knock the players who don't do that. Baseball is random. Baseball is goofy, right?
Yeah.
I think back to like Jake Geloff had a bad Omaha last year.
Yeah.
He was still a second round pick, right? You can have a bad Omaha and be fine. There are evaluators who like to see guys perform in this setting.
Yeah. You bring up that conversation. In the past few years, you've seen the game grow, the talent's grown. Like last year, we had so many first round guys, and this year it's we already said this before. How do we top last year in last year's games? How do we top last year in last year's talent? And then you have this year, and in the first 4 games, okay, here we go. The talent, okay, we got first round guys. Just, do you think people are understanding like how much talent they are seeing in Omaha like never before?
Yeah, I think part of that is we're seeing more talented players get to school
Yeah.
I think part of that is NIL. I think part of that is pro teams being wary of signing high school players because of the lack of track record and the lack of dependable data that people have on them. I think part of that from a pitching side is injuries. Like, you want a kid to go perform in the SEC instead of just taking them in the back half of the first round and giving them $3 million then. I will say this. I have had a lovely time this year in Omaha. The game has been fantastic. What we saw in 2023 was singular.
Yeah.
Right? The Louder Skeens game, that will
Never will happen again.
It won't happen again. That will not happen again. Paul Skeens was a singular thing.
Yeah.
And as much fun as I'm having, like, I don't, not to say you're doing this, but like,
no,
we won't live up to that.
Right.
You know, I think about this as, you know, like, I'm getting married in September. It's going to be the best day of my life. No days beyond that will match it. And that's okay. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
Skeens Louder was the wedding day of Omaha.
It was.
Yeah. I know. We were coming into this and we were like, hey, no expectations. Let last year be last year. But in terms of what we've seen so far this year, like, we can't be upset, right?
No.
So that's our segue into this next thing. Just what's been the best thing? I know there's a few things that you've enjoyed off the field, but what's been the best thing you've seen on the field so far?
It's Christian Moore. I mean, the best part of that Tennessee-Florida State game, Tennessee winning 12-11 on the I think it was the Dylan Dreiling walk-off in the gap.
Yep.
Was the drama around Christian Moore getting to the dish in the ninth, right? So I believe, you know, the 7-hole hitter is up with no outs. Mm-hmm. And it's like, someone has to get on to get Moore up to the plate. Mm-hmm. If he ends the game with being on deck, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
But if he gets up, he's the tying run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he could go yard. He's already hit for the cycle. Mm-hmm. And that being on the horizon and kind of everybody realizing that moment as the inning went on and the building of that drama was, that's theater. Like, that's the whole point of this, right? And for Cannon Peoples to step into that spot and draw that walk after having a frankly very disappointing season, I mean, that's the key moment of the game. Without that, he doesn't get more to the plate.
Yeah.
He doesn't hit the double. Burke doesn't hit the right. That's the line. So that whole, like, the energy of that ninth inning. Yeah. I mean, that was so cool.
Mm-hmm.
That was so cool.
Like, as a player, like, no disrespect to Christian, but like, do you really not know that you just hit the cycle?
Yeah, he said
Great
he didn't
question.
know.
Okay, so
like, when he, like,
so
I almost love that he didn't know, because, like, how awesome is that he was so in the moment, but like, to find out he didn't know after crushing that home run, like, what?
That's what you're right. That's what was great about it, is that if he had hit like a bloop single to get it might have been different. Yeah. But he hit the craziest home run I've seen in years.
Yeah, like at this park, maybe ever.
Okay, so I played college baseball at the Division III level. I was a closer, and I once came into a game in the 8th inning, and we were throwing a no-hitter, and I did not know. And it's a little different because, you know, I was in the dugout for the whole game until I warmed up, but I come to the game, I get through the 8th, no hits, leadoff hitter in the 9th, infield single, and everyone in the stands just starts clapping.
You're like,
I'm like, we're up 6-0. It's like a lead. Like, what are you doing? And then they told me after the game, you know, there's a no-hitter. I had no idea.
So sometimes
you get so you're so into the moment. Yeah. Christian Moore in that moment, if his mind is on, woo, I want to hit for the cycle, like, he's already screwed.
Right,
He's already screwed. Like, his brain is trying to speed up and catch up to, you know, 95.
Yeah.
So I understand how that happens. But oh my God, his face was so good.
So good.
Oh, it was so good.
Like, I was dying to know. I'm like, what did you just tell him? Like, I had to know. And the fact that it was the cycle, I was like, you're kidding. Like, come on.
I mean, if I was in that dugout, I would not go up to him and be like, dude, you got to hit a home run. No. Like, you're almost at the cycle. No, like, no one in that dugout is going to say that to Christian.
He had no idea. I think it was Hunter. I think Hunter was like, hey, you just hit for the cycle. And it was just like, I mean, the camera work, right? Like,
No, that was awesome.
There. Yeah.
Well, let's talk winner's side. Texas A&M against Kentucky, the 3 seed and the 2 seed nationally. Yeah. Expectations for that ball game?
I am excited to see if Kentucky can keep this up. It reminds me of the meme that's like, they can't keep getting away with this. If you look at all the numbers, right, Kentucky should not be the number 2 team in the country when you break it down for like OPS and ERA. I think heading into Omaha, they were 52nd in ERA and 52nd in team OPS. Mm-hmm. And they were number 2 in the country. Mm-hmm. That is unbelievably impressive. For that tells me that all of the side quests are adding up and giving them extra value, and they're winning close games. The camaraderie does matter.
For sure.
The culture that Mingione has created there has a significant impact. And I'm not a big FOMO guy. Like, I don't really feel that. I do feel left out of Kentucky's dugout. Like I want to be in there.
Yeah, it's
like
so fun.
I think the choreography would confuse me. Like there's seems like a lot of rules.
Yeah.
But I feel like I belong in there.
I know.
I think you do too.
Yeah.
I think you could definitely rock.
Maybe you could ask.
You could dye your beard blue.
Yeah, I actually
pyramid.
did that once.
Oh,
really?
So yeah, I'm
Why?
ready to rock.
how'd that go?
Why?
Just
Why not?
Oh, yeah.
Just for fun.
Just for fun.
There you go.
Yeah. I like to think I am a little bit more, sartorially aggressive. I think a pink hat would fit quite well on my head. I think that would be the move. But yeah, Kentucky's great.
Yeah.
They're so much fun to watch. And then for A&M, the big story there is the pitching.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Max Weiner, who's their first year pitching coach, has just done an unbelievably phenomenal job coming over, being the pitching coordinator with the Seattle Mariners. What we saw the other night from Chris Cortez out of the bullpen, I mean, that was electrifying raw stuff. I doubt they bring him back today. He probably won't throw in this game. That being said, they got to feel pretty good about having Ryan Prager go in the 1-0 game, who was really their Friday night guy for most of the season.
Mm-hmm. You're a pitcher. If you had your pitching coach being Texas A&M's, he comes out into the mound. He's got a smile on his face all the time. He's like a joyous guy to talk to on the mound.
Yeah. Have you met Max?
No, I've not met him.
I cannot say enough good things about that person.
Mm-hmm.
Like Mount Rushmore kindness.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he represents a shift in the way that coaches coach over the last handful of years. When you think about a college baseball coach, and I'm not trying to paint with a broad brush, I think of like a hard figure who is demanding, who will get on you if need be, and Max will do that.
Yeah.
But Max approaches coaching through an empathetic lens, right? He is trying to put himself in the shoes of the player and try to communicate to them as best as possible. Now, it helps that he's 29.
Yeah, he gets it. Yeah.
Like he's my age.
Yeah, not far removed.
Yeah, and so that's certainly helpful.
Yeah.
I certainly can't be a pitching coach right now.
Yeah.
But he does you're right. Like you're very spot on with that. Like when he's smiling, that's not a bit. Like that's who that guy is.
And like I was wondering, I would never know. I've never been a pitcher, but like to see a coach come out there and be pretty fierce, like there's already so much pressure on a pitcher the way it is in this situation.
Yeah, you don't need that.
And you have that relationship. So if that's how a coach coaches, that. But to see him come out and smile in a 3-2 ball game, and you've got a Jack Caglione coming up with that kind of stuff, like to have your coach come out, smile, be like, hey, you're good, I got you, what do you need, what do we need to do here? I just feel like that's something we haven't seen, like you said, in 100%. This game necessarily.
And so much of coaching is trying to implement behavioral change, right? And whether that's mental or physical, I'm trying to get you to do something different than what you're doing to better your performance.
Yeah.
And if I'm trying to communicate information, it is almost always going to come across better when there is a built-in level of trust between the player and the coach, between the communicator and the person receiving that information. And that is kind of a new wave of coaching. If I'm berating you and I'm yelling at you and I come out to the mound, I mean, you're terrified of me.
Yeah.
Why? You're not going to calm down.
No.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Calm down.
No. Like as a pitcher, the best mound visits I ever got were my catcher, college catcher, just like being weird.
Yeah.
Like,
sure.
hey man, what's dinner plans? Right? Like that's it. And Max does do a good job of making his players feel really comfortable.
Yeah.
We brought this up in a previous show, but just the ACC versus SEC. What do you think about that in the terms of the state of college baseball? Is it positive? Is it negative? How do you look at it?
So the ACC and the SEC representing the entirety of the field is really the endpoint of a lot of time. And we live in capitalist America, not to get too deep in it, but money talks, right? Money talks and eyeballs talk. And, these programs in these two conferences have more money to work with and they can do more recruiting. They can hire, more. I know the way the staff works is complicated, but they can build better facilities and that all helps. And that lets you get better players and it lets you develop those players. And so the cream is continuing to rise to the top. That bums me out. That does bum me out because on one hand, I want to see Oral Roberts here.
Yeah.
I want to see Evansville here. I want to see those fan bases get here and those programs get here because then what's the point? What is the point of playing college sports is to have a good time and meet friends and win, right? But if I'm committing to a mid-major, say College of Charleston, who's one of the last teams out of the field, and I win 40 whatever games and I don't get in, that's crushing.
Yeah.
That's crushing. And with NIL turning some of these smaller schools into almost feeder programs for these bigger schools, I find it a little bit disheartening. However, at the same time, like, these kids should go find the best opportunities, and they deserve it. And these fan bases that are here put more time and money, and there are more people going to these games. And so that's acceptable, right? For them to be here and have those advantages. They've earned it. And so I try to balance those two things at the same time. I'm conflicted about it. And I think what is most important, what I would advocate for people who follow college sports, if you're a fan of a big team, like an ACC, SEC team, one of these big 12 teams, the big all-state or whatever the heck they're going to call it now, like, try and be empathetic and think about how a fan of a small school or a player on one of those teams would feel. And if you're one of those other teams, think about the idea of a program and their boosters spending all this time, money, and energy into a program and then feeling slighted when people are criticizing them for getting to Omaha.
Yeah.
So I like, just put yourself in the other places.
For sure.
That's a long-winded answer.
Yeah, there's two sides.
It's complicated.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a two-sided conversation, all of it. Whether it's there's a positive to NIL because we're getting more talent in college.
Great.
And then there's the negative because of what you just said. You know, there's the positive of the transfer portal because look how many D2, D3 JUCO kids in the World Series, right?
Incredible stories.
And on the negative, it's because, like you said, the loyalty, right? So let's to look at the positive real fast, because I feel like it was a conversation in the NCAA tournament. So much D3, D2 talent was in this field, obviously in the Division I level. But we asked this the other day on our show, but why do you think that is, that there's more of an understanding that the game across all three levels is getting stronger, and maybe it was the timing of recruiting wasn't the best for these kids, but like the D3, D2, like these kids can play.
So we all develop as people and as athletes and on a physical level at different rates in different stages, right? You remember the kid who, when you were 12 and they were like so tall in class, and then you were 18 and then they were like
so short,
right? Like, that is similar to what happens in recruiting. The kids who end up committing to UNC and Tennessee, whatever, are the best players when they're 16. And here they are competing 6 years later, right? And so there's all this development that can happen within that window, particularly when it comes to cold weather. So if I'm growing up in Georgia, near East Cobb, right, I can play year round. I'm seeing so much more pitching. I'm going to, as a hitter, get better at a faster rate. For sure. Whereas if I grow up in a place where I can't practice outside between, October and March, I'm going to be behind the 8 ball. But once I get into a program, no matter the level, and I start playing more consistently, my game's going to elevate, right? And I might be able to reach that level. And so I think the movement between those levels is an amazing thing for college baseball, because it allows more types of kids from different backgrounds, kids who maybe couldn't afford. Oh, come on. What are we doing?
Miller Lite ad.
We did not pay for that. It lets kids who come from different backgrounds, kids who maybe couldn't afford the expensive showcase circuit, get to this place, get to this level, right? Jacob Ferentz, starting catcher at UVA. We had UConn's whole team in Super Regional.
Love that team.
They were like all D3
Paul
kids.
Tamaro, love that guy.
Paul Tamaro, they were basically like a D3 New England, D3 All-Star team. Luke Broadhurst, their third baseman, is 2 days older than Juan Soto. I want that to sink in, okay? He was born 2 days before Juan Soto, who's hitting free agency, in 4 months. Right? And so
crazy stat.
That's legendary stuff. Like, it's a more interesting game. It adds richness and texture to what we cover and what we do and what we follow. So, all the movement between levels, I'm like all about it. All about it.
No, I think that's what makes baseball so beautiful, and we get to see it on the grandest of stages here in Omaha. And I mean, you can't write a better script for these guys that come from the JUCO level, whether it's D3, D2, or beyond. Like, it's just cool to see them shine here in Omaha and get to hear those stories. And I mean,
I don't want to the crowds or lack thereof that some of these people played in front of at the small school level you can't even begin to understand. Like, I played D3, I played a game, then on the box score it says attendance 4. 4.
Wow.
Okay. And that's not to there just aren't fans. Like, it's parents. That's it.
Right.
It's just parents. And so to go from that to this
thing, like, man,
I mean, I can't imagine. I would be peeing my pants on the mound. You know what I mean? Like, and for these kids to show that they're mature enough and ready for the stage, it's unbelievable.
You mentioned the emotional side of it.
Yeah.
And you believe in more tears in baseball.
Oh yeah.
You tell us why we got on that topic, and we can get into the Virginia press conference.
Yeah.
Kind of share why you think so.
More crying. Like this, we do this, the players do this because it matters.
Yeah.
College athletics as a whole I find it more compelling because the stakes are different.
Yeah.
The stakes are more personal, and that creates a layer of emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And when you lose and your season is over, that emotion coming out, like I said, adds richness, adds texture to the entire experience. And something that I don't think people totally understand, and this is a little different with Jay Wolfuk, who is the example we'll get to in a second.
Yep.
When a college season ends, that is not just the end of a season for certain players. It is the end of a career,
Yep.
but it is not just the end of a career. It is the end of a childhood.
Yep.
Because the second that you're done playing, you need to think about where you're going to live, how you're going to pay your bills. And some kids are already thinking about that and have jobs, I understand. But your focus of your life shifts from
Completely.
What can I do to get ready for tomorrow's game to what's my job? Like,
How do I survive
How do I
tomorrow?
survive
Yeah.
the complicated world?
Yeah.
And that moment, I felt it.
Mm-hmm.
Every college athlete has felt it.
Yeah.
Even the ones who are going into pro ball, right? Pro ball is exciting. It's enticing. There are riches. There is glory. There is struggle. There is strife. There's all of that rolled into one. But that unknown is horrifying. And I think that's what we saw yesterday with Jay Wolfuk, just filling people in. Jay Wolfuk started yesterday for UVA, got hurt in the middle of his start. He was pretty effective. In the post-game presser, he was very emotional, thanking his coach, Brian O'Connor. And what was really interesting, right? Jay's a junior. He has a year of eligibility. He could come back if he really wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he's not.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's going to pick him and pay him a lot of money, and he should go take that professional opportunity, right? But it just encapsulated how much time and energy and effort and passion and blood and sweat and tears goes into this behind the scenes before we see it, right? And when that comes out in the final moment of a season, I always talk it like, to me, it's the sound, like the pitter patter of goodbyes, right? Like dudes dapping each other up and like that pat on the back.
Yeah.
And I think I wrote about it yesterday for Yahoo Sports, I said bleary eyes and long goodbyes. It's these people who see you again. It's the end of you remember the last day of college?
The last day I put my uniform on 100%.
Yeah, like that.
Put your cleats on. You're like, this is the last time. Yeah.
This is it. And that, part of me is like, I don't want to rubberneck it a bad day that Jay Wolfuk's having.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do think it makes people appreciate this entire thing.
Absolutely. Well, Jack Caglione gets the ball today on the mound, and
Oh, yeah.
he said it in Clemson. He's like, I'm so terrified to take off this jersey that it's the last thing that I want to do.
You don't have to, Jack. You can come back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
I know.
can come back.
He
You
can.
got eligibility,
He
Jack.
can. He can.
Come on back.
He does. But
How much NIL money
I know.
can the Florida Gators keep Jack
Seriously.
Caglione?
Right.
Yeah.
But it's like to have a player that knows that he's
Yeah.
going to go make a ton of money, right?
Yeah.
And he's one of the most talked about baseball players in the country for probably one of the 2 years. And he's so terrified to take off a jersey, knowing that the rest of his life he's got a baseball, right?
He's set up, right? Like,
and he's so terrified to do
Yeah.
that. Like, I think you bring up a great point. Like, it doesn't matter. For some of these kids, it is the end. But for these kids that have that opportunity, it still means the world. And it's not as transactional as, professional baseball is. And so
Well, it's a job.
Yeah.
I love doing this.
Yeah.
It's a job. Same thing with MLB players. They love it's a freaking good job.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not trying to be. You don't have to feel bad for Bryce Harper. I mean, they get $330 million to swing a bat, right? But it's the job.
Yeah.
And the innocence kind of evaporates when it becomes the job.
Right. Yeah.
And that's scary.
Yeah.
It's a really scary thing. And I totally empathize with Jack Caglione, of all people, being like, I'm afraid. I'm like, you're gonna be okay. Like,
I know.
Like,
Right.
your bench graduate student, like, he should be worried, right? But like,
sure.
you're fine.
Right. But like, to your point, just like, on all levels, like college just does something for these players that they know already that they're not going to experience probably again.
Yeah. And the environment of pro ball is just different. I think back to, I always love asking players who come to Omaha, what was your first game like in pro ball? You're on the complex in Arizona or Florida. There's 6 people there.
Yeah.
3 weeks ago, you were with all your best friends and like
30,000.
brothers in front of 25,000 people in Omaha. And it was so emotional. All that adrenaline's pumping. And then you're basically playing a glorified scrimmage.
Yeah.
And that emotional shift is so difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, Kentucky's a great example.
Mm-hmm.
This shtick that they do in the dugout, if Ryan Waldschmidt, who's probably their best player, he's going to get drafted in the first round probably next month. If he goes to low A and starts doing this in the dugout,
people are gonna look at him weird.
His teammates are going to be like, "What are you doing?
He's
You
looking around the
weird!"
crowd and be like, "Guys, we're supposed to. You don't know? Come on."
Where's your
Nick
pink hat?
Lopez can't have the blue mustache in low A.
And aviators,
Because
by the way.
it's a job, right? And now I wish pro ball had more room
more
to
Kentucky,
do this, and it's getting there.
Yeah.
We're getting there, but it's totally different. I remember, I think I was talking to Kamar Rocker about this at one point. Just like the raw emotion that guy pitched with here and in college, you can't pitch with that in low A when there's 1,000 people in the stands.
Yeah.
No.
It doesn't translate the same.
What's going on?
Well, and then the other thing is like, here, what is the point of all these games? It's to win them.
Yeah.
You get into the minors, and the priority is then development. And so you have these situations where players will go like 3 or 4 years before they get to the majors, where winning the game is not the number one thing.
Yeah.
That's so weird.
It is very weird. Yeah.
Right? You're in college for 4 years, and like everything's about, sacrificing for the sake of the team. You get a pro ball, boom, me.
Everyone's out for themselves.
Sure. And it's understandable, the dynamic.
Yeah, you have to.
But that shift is so weird, right?
Yeah.
So weird.
Well, since we won't talk to you before previewing the finals, any predictions for us that you'd love to share?
Yeah, we're all winners here, as witnesses to this beautiful event.
Yeah.
I hate predictions, but I will make them. I mean, Tennessee's 2-0, so duh. I think they're going to do it. I think Tennessee's going to do the whole thing. I just, what they did the other day against Florida State.
Yeah.
Florida State did not give that game away. I know their relievers kind of ran out of juice a little bit, but Kentucky barreled up baseball after baseball late in that game. And I just think this is the group that's going to put them over the top. On the other side of the bracket, I think Kentucky knocks off A&M today.
Okay.
I do. I think Kentucky Kentucky knocks off A&M today. A&M comes back through the losers bracket and meets up with A&M.
Tennessee, I think so too. Before we end this, do you feel like you were here last year, obviously too? Tennessee, you go up against LSU in your first game, right? So they're down, they're in a hole. But
not just LSU. Big
Paul.
Sorry.
The LSU. Does it? I feel like you can feel the energy is completely different with the Tennessee team. Like if they went down last year, it was like, oh. This year, it's like, okay, we'll see, right? It just feels different. Like the energy around their dugout even feels different.
So, I mean, this is really, let's call it year 4 of the Vitello.
Yeah.
I know it's his 7th year as a coach, but it's his 4th year of the post-COVID cycle.
Yeah.
21, they get here. They're not ready for the moment.
Yeah.
It overwhelms them. Andrew Abbott kicks their butt, and then Tony Fee and Frank Anderson get ejected right in the losers bracket game, right? 22 is the most thrilling, captivating college team we've ever seen, and they don't get here.
Yeah.
23, Paul Skeens. You can't plan for that.
Yeah.
He shoves it to them. This is the first year where the road feels doable.
Yeah.
They have the cockiness of the 22 team, but they don't. They're smarter and they're more mature and they're more controlled with their emotions, right? I think last night, or a couple nights ago, Christian Moore at the plate in the 9th inning, and he's motioning the dugout and a 2-strike count. Let's fight. Right? That's the raw emotion, but it's also controlled. Yeah. It's not, respectfully, Jordan Beck flipping the bird as he's rounding first base. I like that. There's a line here. There's a line here, right? And I just, this is the volunteer team that's going to do it.
Yeah.
You heard it here last.
You heard it here last day. Well, Jake Mintz, thank you so much for your prediction. Thank you so much for your time. Enjoy your last moments in Omaha. Is there anything you need to do before you leave?
Have you gone to Rocco's?
Yeah.
Have you had a shot?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
You said more sober this time, so
I didn't say sober.
Okay. Just making
I'm sober right now. I said more sober.
Okay, that's
what have I not done? That's a great question.
We gone on the Ferris wheel?
No, that's not for me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, that's not. That's not on my alley. The one thing I haven't done yet that I would still like to do, I don't know. That's a great question.
You hit all the boxes.
I'm going to chew on it. Yeah.
Oh, you need to get a Runza.
A what?
Oh, perfect. You need to go to Runza. It's a fast food restaurant here. We're famous for it in Nebraska.
Yeah.
You need to go to Runza. You need to get a cheese
this is like a
Runza.
prank.
Hold on, no.
This is like a Bofa joke.
No. What time's your flight?
5
p.m. Okay,
maybe go at
go now.
What do they have?
Runzas. It's basically a meat-filled pocket.
No. Look it up. Look it up.
No, I'll show you what a runza is.
A meat-filled pocket.
Okay, it is. It's like a hot pocket.
Okay.
Here you go. It's
Okay,
like
you add cheese.
Wow.
You dip it in ranch. Also great fries.
Oh, so it has all the
Homemade
food
ranch.
groups in it.
Homemade, yes. So much green. See?
Wow.
They put the greens right
But
in there.
make sure you leave enough time before the flight.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
I'm going to do this, but I just want to apologize. Camera right here. I want to apologize to whoever is sitting next to me on my flight. Okay, I'm going to do my best to keep that runza in me.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. It's their fault. Blame them.
It's literally Anna's one sole purpose in life to make sure everyone tries one.
This is just me. I need you to try runza and take a video.
I'm going to have a runza delivered to the press box. I'll do a runza review.
Yes, do it, please.
Great.
I would love it.
Well, thank you both for your hospitality and for having me on. I really enjoyed this discussion. Like, just let the joy in whenever you can.
Yeah,
That's
I love that.
We love it.
Yeah.
We're all
Put
about
that on a
joy.
hat. Let's do that.
Let the joy in.
We're in Omaha.
Yeah,
it's
how could you not?
Disneyland, so.
Disneyland for weirdos. That's us.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining Keep It Real. We'll talk to you next time right here for the Men's College World Series.